Wait, let's see. Oh, it's recording. Okay, Brianna,
Hi.
what an
Thank you for
honor. I'm so happy to see your face, your beautiful face on this Zoom. It brings me back to January of this past year.
that's actually I was trying to think of the timeline. I'm like, when did we originally meet and start working together? Well, first of all, you're stunning and glowing and just living your most authentic, aligned life. So I'm just so ecstatic for you and so honored to be your first guest.
Thank you. Welcome to
Truly.
Field Trip Energy. You are my first guest, and it only made sense to bring you on, guest of honor. Oh my
Yay.
God, I'm so happy. You
Thank
helped me
you.
through my very first heartbreak, my very first breakup at 32.
Wow.
And I was in shock. And I found you on TikTok because you have a predominant following and
Yeah.
a great podcast. We're gonna attach where to find you on this. Love
Thank
this. This
you.
was my breakup binder. This was my
I
breakup
was
binder.
I was
Yeah.
about to just give you a compliment because here's the thing too, is like you have to want to show up doing the work. Lucy came ready to work. Okay. This girl was coming with notes. I send everybody homework assignments and prompts. Like we don't just do talk therapy. We're getting in there actionable neuroscience based tools, etc. Lucy was doing the homework. She was coming, filling out the prompts, had her notebook. So you were also in the right space with the right capacity to say, I'm ready to actually take the information and implement it.
Yes. Thank you for saying that because I look back on that period and I wanted to even bring this to you today. I had never been through a breakup, like I said, and I found it to be one of the most counterintuitive things I've ever been through. Everything I
How
wanted to
so?
do in my gut, like call him, be
Uh,
next to him, talk to
yeah.
him. This is
Yeah.
really challenging. Talk to your former partner. That's who you used to trust.
Yeah.
And so I was lost at
Yeah.
sea. I really
Yeah.
mean that. I did not know how to go through this. It was such a learning curve, and you were this beacon of light and expertise.
What a testament to your character, though, because honestly, and I'm really good at reading people, I never got that vibe from you. I was like, oh, she's just like looking to get over this and have practical tools and accountability.
Yes,
So
yes. Coming
we
up.
talked about heartbreak for a little bit. I think like honestly, by the third session, we were like, all right, let's talk business.
That's so fair. I was like, all right, enough of being sad. Let's turn this into something fruitful.
It's yeah, the relationship heartbreak got you in the door, but you're like, actually, while we're in here, let's do some other shit.
Is there something, no matter how serious your client, you find yourself saying to an ad nauseum? When someone comes
Oh.
to you with a breakup and you're just like, my God, if I say this one more time.
There's a lot. It is funny because you do start to see patterns and themes where I'm like, okay, I should turn this into a course or something. A lot of the pillars that I have that I see come through in people's lives are relationships, obviously, but not always the relationship with somebody else. It's the relationship that we have with ourself that sets the boundaries and sets the definition for everything else that we allow and tolerate in our life. So much of it is like looking about what's going on with me. A huge part of what I do as well is helping people with outdated belief systems and thought audits and challenging their thoughts and understanding there's a difference between evidence and emotions and where is the data? How can we start to show your brain proof about the data for the good things, the bad things? And then also, again, where have I participated in this idea of if everybody else is the problem, at some point, actually, I'm the problem and I'm the common denominator. So you see a lot of that. I also see I work with a lot of high achievers, type A, perfectionist people, and they are externally very validated. However, they have extremely low self worth. So I talk a lot about the idea of it's called self-worth, not others' worth. And so if we're relying on everybody else all the time or accolades or validation and that goes away, then of course you're going to feel like I'm not worthy of anything. So that's, I think, a huge pillar. And then understanding that you have to be the one to set your own thermostat and you're never going to understand why because you're not a shitty people do shitty things. If you're not a shitty person, you're just literally not going to get it. And closure is a decision, not a conversation. And I think those are a lot of the same pillars. And because I was also that person of needing to know why. And if you're very intellectual and you want to get to the root of what's happening, the psychological root, you think that if I understand this, then I can move on. And a lot of the times the ego loops and the cognitive loops that we have, I always say your brain is a dick and your brain is a lying liar. And so a lot of
Yeah.
what we do is actually challenging those thoughts and reframing. I love a reframe. Anything that we can reframe that's going to be so powerful because that's actually the only thing you can control is your thoughts and your mindset.
Yes. That was so well put. You did touch on some, but can we rattle off some examples of outdated belief systems?
Some people come into it being like, all men and women are trash. I'm never going to find love again. This person's moving on. And again, a lot of this is actually ego validation, justice loop stuff of why we say these things, or like, I'm never going to find better. I'm never going to feel love like this again. I'm not worthy. Like, this is as good as it's going to get. Right. So there's a lot of that. And those are just literally old belief systems, because a belief is is a thought that you just keep thinking. It's your truth. It's not a universal truth. And so if I choose to not believe that anymore, or if I choose to assign different meaning to the story that I have in my head, I tell people all the time, like, you're an actress. I'm like, you are a shitty writer. And I'm like, this is your first draft and it's trash. So get back in the writer's room and write something different that's going to actually make you feel better, because the thoughts that you're thinking, they're, again, it's your truth. It doesn't mean that they are actual facts. They are feelings. My thoughts influence my feelings influence my actions, and my actions get me closer to or further away from. So if the belief is I'm never going to be enough, or I'm a garbage person, or I'm stupid, or I always pick losers, your brain loves proving you right, to be like, yeah, you're right. Here's a whole panoply of all the idiots that you've dated. And here's all the ways that you're not enough. And so you have to actually, that's why I'm so big with clients. I always make them do a proof log of showing the evidence in those moments of when you're doing the hard things that you did it despite not wanting to. Or you could choose to say, yeah, maybe up until today, Friday the 24th, I picked really bad people. And now you can choose to think a different thought and vote differently with your actions. So it's understanding what is the belief, and then how can I actually change the action and the identity-based decisions around that.
And you touched on something that when we worked together, I found to be so helpful, and that's writing a log, writing lists, writing the journal prompts. I was looking through some of them this morning, haunting. And one of them, can you talk about the importance of, like, one of the prompts was, what are some red flags I saw early on that I just will let completely breeze over my head? Can you talk about the importance of seeing that listed out as a person going through heartbreak? So you're in active heartbreak, your whole body's like, I want to go back to them. What's the importance of seeing that written out?
Again, because your brain likes familiarity. It doesn't like what is best for you. It's like it likes what is familiar, and your brain is also a prediction machine. So if it can group similar things together, because your brain is lazy as well, it says, oh, I don't, and I always say this, you don't have a type, you have a pattern. And where there's a pattern, there's a problem. So if I keep having the same pattern that I am picking, at some point I have to look at what is going on with the criteria that I have for the people that I am allowing in my life. So if you can't actually identify, okay, these are the things that are going to work for me or not work for me, or this is what I will never allow again, old habits die hard, if ever. But you can't improve what you're not aware of. So if you have not even taken time to audit, we've done a lot of audits together, thought audits, right? Like red flag audits. If you don't even know, getting everything out on the paper of like, okay, which of these are red flags historically that are my patterns? Which of these things are yellow flags that I thought would turn green? And guess what? They didn't. They usually just became red. And then also, where are the green flags that I have not been giving enough credit to that I should probably move up to pole position one? You have to hold yourself accountable, because if not, then you're full of shit and I don't feel bad for you anymore.
Okay, that is a perfect segue, because I was looking in this binder, as I said, and to your exercise, I had signed a personal contract, and I signed it with my name right here, 2/28/25, what I will never tolerate again. For those listening, can you give a brief explanation of how they can do that exercise?
Yes. First of all, let me just say, when Lucy sent this back, I was like, this is so litigious. You should send this to a lawyer. It was one of the most beautifully written contracts. It was poetic and pragmatic at the same time. And I was like, you need to frame this somewhere. Actually, you should. But this is actually one of my favorite things, because it's, again, it's one of those things that sounds a little crunchy and granola. And I'm like, no, put pen to paper, because it's actually quite difficult to call yourself out on your bullshit. So the contract for you is basically like an emotional NDA, is what I say. And it protects you from the parts of yourself that you either forget, or, again, when the going gets tough, we slip back into old habits. We all have a default setting. And that is what, like, a lot of this, quote, healing, fixing journey is we're trying to either reset our default setting, get back to factory setting, or we know, again, what when I am stressed out, I go back to this kind of person, or when I'm feeling lonely, hope and loneliness, right? And boredom, the very dangerous drugs of dating, when I go back to those. So if you can't even identify that of what is my factory setting, how can I get away from that, or at least upgrade my software? So in the personal emotional contract that could include anything from these are behaviors that I will absolutely never tolerate again. This is the kind of energy I will not entertain. This is the kind of identity that I will not co-sign for. Because again, every time that you re-engage with somebody who is misaligned, you're basically violating your own agreement. It's also assessing like, what is the energetic cost or what is the, ROI on if I am with this kind of person and what has that done to me. So really just sitting down and figuring out what I will never tolerate again. I'm also, as you know, really big on updating your definitions of what certain things are in your life. So what does a healthy relationship for Brianna today mean for me that maybe when I didn't have the same knowledge base, I didn't have that definition 6 months ago or a year ago. So updating what are my personal policies of what I will and will not tolerate, and then giving tangible examples in that contract again as well, I think is really important. And then just saying, this is, I am only open for this kind of relationship, or I am a kind of person who only interacts with this kind of person back, and really just holding yourself accountable. Because if you don't hold that bar, then anybody can come into your life and treat you however you want.
Like one of the points I made was I will no longer entertain somebody so highly intellectual because that's my kryptonite. I'm like, ooh,
Yes.
I love a human encyclopedia. I'm never bored because my brain loves.
Yes.
I will not entertain someone like that who I have to then take on the emotional laboring for two people
Yes.
because I have a high EQ. So then I'm
Mhm.
overcompensating for the lack of. And that
Yes.
is something that came to my awareness where I'm like, oh, if I'm not aware, I'm turning to that type of person.
And that's what it is really. It's really about calling yourself out on the blind spots that probably you've been lying to yourself about, or again, you're not really fully ready to admit that, because then you're just like, damn, I have kind of, this has been on me. I've been perpetuating this cycle. And so it's true. It's like the idea of like, you literally can't you can't improve what you are not aware of. And awareness alone still isn't even enough. But if you're not at least starting from step one of, let me audit everything, how do I even know what is working, what is not working? And to your point, what is my biggest kryptonite versus not?
I love that you said awareness is not even close to enough, but it's a great start. It's so
Because most
true.
people aren't even aware. And that's what people do. They do this on TikTok all the time, is they think because I've watched 90 videos and they've saved 100 of them. And I'm like, but information without implementation is tenuous. What are you doing with the information? It's the same thing with time. Like time alone does nothing. What are you doing with the time?
Exactly. Do you have an opinion for those watching? Like you're talking about people saving videos, right? Do you have an
Mm-hmm.
opinion on what's the first steps of a timeline through a breakup?
No, that's a really great question, because I actually did, the first time I did this video, got like 1.2 million views. And I literally just like reposted it a while ago, and I think I got like 150,000 views, and the comments are wild. And the comments are wild.
Comment
First things
sections
first,
go
I
crazy.
do. And I actually, the community I have, the comments, like everybody's like pretty supportive, which is really nice.
That's really nice. Yeah.
It's really nice. I think I will take a step back and say everything is contextual and nuanced, right? Like, depending on the amount of time that you invested, the intensity of the relationship, the kind of bond that you had, right? Some people have stayed in a relationship for way past the expiration date. And so they've maybe mentally and emotionally checked out a while ago, and they're just physically in the relationship. So, with all of that said, contextually, what I always tell people is that I don't care if you were with that person for like 1 month, 1 year, or 10 years. The first week, there's no way around it. It is hell week. That's it.
So
Buckle
bad.
up, buttercup, because it is not a good week. Your body is literally detoxing from the chemical cocktails of adrenaline and cortisol and oxytocin and dopamine, right? Your nervous system has been, for better or worse, co-regulating with somebody else. So you are literally withdrawing from a person and their nervous system and their emotions and your routine and your habits and the familiarity. That is what people miss the most, is you are like literally this person. Even if we fought every day, well, guess what? We fought every day at 4 o'clock. And that was a part. And again, because your brain loves routine, loves it.
Yes. Yes. I couldn't eat for a really long time. I was like living off broth
Correct.
from that
Yes.
adrenal crash, or I guess
Yes.
adrenal spike, really, and crash.
Yeah.
It was just a mess. Yeah.
And the emotional pain actually lights up the same parts of your brain as physical pain. So whether I walked into a door and busted my head open, it literally feels like you want to die. I did a whole podcast episode a while ago on the neuroscience of heartbreak, because your brain is literally trying to process what is going on. So I always say either at least month one or week one, you got to really proactively put some systems in place. And the example I give is that if you were a pro athlete, right? Let's say you're an athlete and you blow out your shoulder. There's a couple of ways to recover. You can recover like you are a pro athlete, you are in the major leagues, right? Where you have access to the best doctors. Maybe you can't use your shoulder anymore. So you're going to work on mindset stuff. You're going to work with a nutritionist. Say, I'm going to double down on lower body work, right? Like there's a way to do pro recovery. And then there's a way to do amateur recovery where you're like, well, my shoulders hurt. So I guess I'm going to just sit here and eat bonbons and I'm not going to do anything. And I'm going to lament and bemoan on the couch and I'm going to look at their shit and I'm going to be sad. Right. And I'm going to be in these sweatpants. And there's a time and a place for that, but you cannot live there. So even if you are in your darkest day, what I would suggest to anybody is splitting your day into 4 quarters. I think you should do this, whether this is the best day of your life or the worst day of your life, and understanding that you cannot have all 4 quarters be an absolute despair spiral. You can say, cool, Q1, which is early morning, and then mid-morning, Q2, mid-afternoon, late night. You have to pick a quarter that you are forcing yourself to do something to show your brain, number one, that you can do it. And to number 2, start building new routines and habits. So especially that first month, which is usually the toughest for people, week 1, that's a wrap. Surround yourself with people that you like, get your comfort shows, do something to move your body. I was like living in the gym. I was spending hours in the gym.
I moved back to Indianapolis with my family and like to be surrounded. I could not be alone. So I always give that
sleeping
as
in
advice.
I was sleeping in my mom's bed. I was proactively putting things on my calendar because we had plans, let's say like made in the route, we already had we were going to go to a wedding together and that obviously didn't happen. So my mom and I booked a massage that day, right? So just like things that are positive distractions, because that can only work for so long. And then you're left with your own thoughts and you're like, and now I'm sad again.
Right.
With that being said as well, I know nobody believes this in the moment, but you will not be here forever.
Yes.
Because you look back now and you're just like, that's so crazy to think that felt like the toughest time of my life. Like everything in life is transient. Nobody ever questions when it's the best day of their life and it's an accolade and they're having the woohoo moments. That goes away too.
Yes.
But when you're in the shithole of my heart is broken, my world has been imploded, there's been a grenade in my life, and there's no semblance of who knows when I'll meet somebody again or when I'll feel good again. The only thing you could do is say, like, this too shall pass, because it will. And the darkest day only has 24 hours. So in the beginning, that first week or those first weeks, I wouldn't even worry about trying to string days together. I would worry about stringing moments together.
Oh, I love that.
I remember being at a lunch with my mom and they were playing like banger love ballads. I burst out into tears and I asked the guy to shut the radio off. And I was like, I can't be in public yet. So I was like, well, we learned that lesson, right?
Like, well, good to know.
Good to know. I'm crying over my sushi roll. We're not going to do that again.
It was close to Valentine's Day for me, and my precious nephew, like my sister-in-law was so sweet and wrote like, will you be my Valentine from him? And I was just like, what a beautiful glimmer of light in the darkest time.
Yeah. And with the glimmer, I think that's also, again, especially that first week, I would implore people to force yourself to do one glimmer moment a day. I don't care if that means taking 5 laps around your couch, holding a plank for 30 seconds, something, because mood follows action. So if you could do something that shows, okay, every day at 5 o'clock, I do 10 push-ups, even if you don't want to do it, that now starts to become your new routine. Grief is a hell of an emotion. People do not know how to grieve.
No, they don't. No, they don't. Myself included. I learned the hard way that I am terrible at grief.
Most people are, because we're never taught how to deal with grief. And I always tell people grief happens in circles, not lines.
Yes, that's beautiful.
And you have random moments of being like, I thought I was good. And then you're like, and now I heard a song and I want to cry again.
Oh, I was walking home from the gym months and months after my break and just burst into tears. Yes. I was like, okay, all right. Yeah. And I just let it.
Yeah.
You have to. You can't fight those. You have to let those tears come. Yeah.
But that's why I do say time alone does not heal all wounds. It's what you do with the time. Time is a conduit. So I always encourage people to say, what would 1 month from me, the version of me, want today me to do, right? Because everything we do in life is a lagging result of the decisions we make, the habits we form, the thoughts that we have. So even if I don't feel good right now, what am I depositing right now that in a month, what will the payout be from this thought, this action, this
Yes.
conversation, right? So it's about not what does today me want, because today me feels like shit, but what would 1 month for me, right? How would that version of me show up if they could come and teleport themselves down to this couch right now? They would probably be like, get your ass off the couch and go do something.
I was going to say that is such a huge, major way to think of that because the
Mhm.
me right now in a breakup, when I was early on, would just want to call him, just go please get back together, right?
Yes.
But the
Yes.
1 5 months from them would be like, we made it so far, don't you dare,
Don't you
don't you
dare.
dare.
Yes. And also reminding yourself that multiple emotions can exist and be true at the same time. You can be sad and miss somebody and also know that that relationship was not good for me. It was not healthy for me. I am an addict. I am withdrawing from this drug. And it's like any other drug. You can't have a little bit of heroin if you're a heroin addict. You got to go cold turkey.
Can you talk about how you said this to me and I've spread your knowledge to everyone going through this. You said you must date like you're a Fortune 500 company. Can you talk about
Yes.
that? Brilliant.
That's so important because I think, I mean, obviously, I kind of have a propensity to operationalize things. And because in the moment when you're so emotional, you need to really actually remove emotions from the equation and start to gather evidence because emotions will make you make really bad decisions, which is why you have to be collecting data and making sure that you are building the evidence log and the proof log and making sure that when we have our fantasy goggles on versus reality goggles, so on and so forth. But when you're thinking about dating like a Fortune 500 company, right? Like your life is the business, the relationship that you're in, you're the CEO of your life. And so, number one, you kind of have to have a vision statement for your life of like, where do I want to be? My 5-year emotional strategy. What kind of life do I want to have? When I talk to people, I say, you got to think about the lifestyle that you want to marry for. That doesn't mean, do I want to drive a Range Rover? It means on a Tuesday night, what are we doing? Are we like going to Whole Foods together and playing tennis? Or are we building a business, or is it a combination, right? Like, so you have to figure out what do I want as the company of me, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you've gotten out of a breakup, you're doing a bit of a restructuring and a reorganization.
Yeah.
So first things first is I have to figure out what is the hiring criteria. You have to get so abundantly clear on the criteria that I need for the person who is going to qualify to be the co-founder of my life. And if you're if you're a great company, everybody is going to want to come and work for you. So your job is to not just let any applicant through the door. Your job, first step, is figure out what is the bare minimum requirements that I need for somebody. Not like you have a, high school degree, right? Like you can't even be applying. And these are all metaphors, right, for life. But the idea of what is actually going to qualify somebody to have access to even get through the application process.
I mean, for me, it took calling my friends, it took working with you, calling my friends who have known me my whole life to just go, Lucy, and then self-reflection. If you are not 100% yourself on a first date, because I tend to dim. I tend to dim because I have a lot of passion. I have a lot of things to say. I can get really sassy, wackadoodle, and I'll dim. And they're like, if you are not 100% yourself, that is your biggest alarm bell going off. This is not the person for you.
Correct. And that's the point to like that's part of your mission, right? When people go to work for Google, part of the reason that people like working for Google, it's a certain lifestyle there. Back in the day, it was like you can wear jeans to work. And that was so groundbreaking and blowing people's brains. Right? There are certain companies that have standards and they have very high screening process and they have a mission statement and they stand for XYZ. So figuring out what is it that I stand for and what do I want to align with? And again, just because you want to work here doesn't mean that you get to work here. With that being said as well, after you kind of have your mission statement and you have your standards and the minimum qualifications for what somebody would need, you get to write the job description for what you're looking for.
In your opinion, why is it so challenging for some of us to not know what we want?
There's a couple of reasons. I think number one, if it's never been modeled to you before, that you're like, you don't know what you don't know. But I think a part of it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you believe that doesn't exist, then guess what? You're right. Because if you can't even believe or imagine what that could feel like, then you'll never even know if a sort of shadow or a semblance of that comes into your life, which is why I always tell people, what would it feel like for you to be with your dream partner? I don't say necessarily like how tall, what would it physically feel like in your body?
Yes.
Because if you can't even imagine that and feel that, when people come into your energy field and your life, you're like, I said I wanted somebody who made me feel like this. And when I'm with them, I feel like I'm shrinking myself. So that is That's a mismatch of not only requirements, but the person that I said I wanted to apply for the job. And again, that's why I talk a lot about dating in your emotional pay range. You have to also, just like any company, always be doing audits. You have to be doing kind of what, like, check-ins, looking at the risk management here and seeing like what is working. We're checking in. This is, what are the metrics that I am using for when the employee is at the company of me? How is that working? What is the ROI on the investment that I'm making, time-wise, energy-wise, money-wise for some people? And then you can't just always date off of chemistry. You have to date off of compatibility metrics as well.
Yeah, that part is huge. We were talking about how frustrating it is when something's a cliche.
Uh-huh. God.
Usually right. What is the cliche that you would say happened and then you found love?
So 500 Days of Summer is one of my favorite movies ever. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Oh, I have. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
So there's a scene at the end where Summer goes to the guy. He goes, I don't understand. You never wanted to be anybody's boyfriend, and now you're somebody's wife. And she goes, I just woke up one day and I knew. And he goes, you knew what? And she says, what I was never sure of with you. When I heard that line the first time, what a dagger to my heart, because I was like, every other relationship that I have been in, I have been like, I don't know, something just feels off. Like I'm kind of, I don't know what it is, right? Like there was always this like 1 foot in, 1 foot out energy for me, always looking for an exit strategy, being like, I gotta get out of here. I can't fully commit. I can't rely on somebody. And my partner that I'm with now, literally, it is this sense of, it's a full fuck yes knowing, and it's just different. It will feel different. And so if I could give anybody any advice, it's the idea of like, if things still feel off for you or you haven't totally found it. And of course, again, there's nuances between preferences and priorities and being, like nitpicky and all of that. But when there's alignment on vision, values, and lifestyles, and you really can just be yourself, he's not asking me to be anybody except myself. I'm not trying to change him at all. It literally just feels different. And when you know that there's a calmness.
Big time. And you highlighted something so important, which is values, shared values.
Yes.
And I just want to say quickly, this was a major learning curve for my ex-partner and I, and we were desperate for an answer because essentially I lived here. If this is a spectrum, I lived here confidently. I was like, this is where I stand on this particular value. I know it for a fact. I know this is my first relationship, but I'm looking around the people I respect and we're all in line. He didn't have anyone healthy to look up to in that area.
Yes.
So he's like, I think I'm here. I think, but you're not worth losing. So let me come here.
Yep.
And that's the exact ingredient for resentment.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think we talked about this too, actually having similar upbringings. For a while, I tried to be like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you don't have a say in how you were raised and all that. It does matter. I will tell you, some of the most toxic relationships I've ever been in, I have a hot take on this. I think that guys have daddy issues more than girls do. And I think any guy that I've dated that's been pernicious in any way has had a terrible relationship with their father, number one, because if it's not modeled to you on some level, but also, so my partner now, like we grew up very similar in the sense of like, there was a lot of respect in the household. We both grew up like playing sports. Like he really respects his parents, like family values, right? Like you have to have those similar values of like respect and integrity and whatever that is for you, and understanding that if you waver on those, that it will become a problem down the road.
Totally. And I want to ask you this to play devil's advocate. What would you say to those who push back and get really offended by that? They're like, well, my husband had a terrible upbringing and get really charged up by that.
Well, I would say a couple of things. So when people get super offended, I say you only get offended to the degree that which you think something is true. So there's probably some version of something in you that you've maybe had fights about stuff that you're not going to admit.
Right.
But I would also say that, of course, there are outliers all the time, right? There's exceptions to rules all the time. What I have found is that people go one of two ways. They either repeat that pattern indefinitely and use it as a scapegoat, and they say, this is just how I was raised. This is just how it was. Or you see somebody who's like, I had this upbringing and I realized I do not want that dynamic at all. And they did the work, not because of you. They did the work despite you and before they met you. And they identified that pattern way earlier. So they've already known that, and they knew their chinks in the armor coming in of saying, hey, I grew up in this, the way that I grew up, the way my dad talked to my mom or whatever it is, I don't like that. I'm not going to repeat that pattern. They already shared that with you early on. Not a plea bargain of when you're leaving the relationship after 6 months and being like, and now I'm going to change. Really? Oh, now? Okay.
That's
Interesting.
huge what you just said. That's
Yeah.
huge what you just said. Yes.
Yeah.
Major.
Auspicious timing of like all of a sudden you've had this information, you've been yourself for 36 years and you've known that this has been a pattern for you. And now, oh, you're having a light bulb moment now. That's very auspicious for you.
Is there anything where you listen to your clients and maybe it's just recent where you've just heard a similar red flag over and over and over again? You're like, good God, this red flag is flying high. It's huge.
Oh, I mean, one of the biggest one is just behaviors and words not aligning. That
Wow.
is, I mean, people saying they're going to do one, and then also believing that if somebody showed you what they're capable of once, people rarely do anything once. Robert Greene talks about this in his 48 Laws of Power. People are always leaving glimmers of who they are. People just become more of who they are. So if you want to be stupid and turn a blind, I've been there. I get it. I want to see the best in people instead of the reality people. That's how I used to filter things, right? Hopium, hoping it will change, hoping if I love them enough, hoping if I give them the tools. No, that's not how it works because change is hard enough when you want to do it on your own. And once you realize that, you will realize what little chance you have of changing anybody else.
Absolutely. And one exercise you had me do, which was so helpful to kind of combat that highlight reel when I was healing, was to get my audio messages out. And anytime I remembered a memory that did not align with my values and brought me into a space that I did not feel good about myself, I just talked those memories into my phone and then could replay them later when I wanted to play the highlight reel.
It's nice because you hear it from yourself. And I always say that you can lie to me, but you can't lie to yourself. I mean, you can lie to yourself, but it's not going to be helpful. Like, if I had to present this data to a jury of my peers objectively and somebody played this back, or if I played this back to a third party, what advice would they give in the moment?
Yeah.
And when you hear it back yourself, you're like, okay, that's actually, that's not great. No, that's not going to hold up in a court of law. We're stupid.
Do you have any advice for people who have made the decision to break up? They're like, I know what I need now, and they're waiting. And it might be the cliches because we've talked about how they're true, but the waiting game until you find the person you're going to spend your life with. Do you have any advice for that period of time?
Yeah, I think it's kind of that idea of you have to figure out what is the life that I am trying to create? What is the version of me that I'm trying to become that would attract in the same person or someone of a similar frequency? So it's that idea of instead of chasing the butterfly, focus on building your garden.
Yes.
So the butterflies can come. How have I lost myself in certain relationships? What do I want now that I have different skill sets and I have maybe different tools? Like, what kind of life do I want to create? And then if somebody fits in, because that's when people come into your life now, they're not competing with necessarily a checklist. They're competing with the life that I've created, which is fucking amazing. So at minimum, you have to be additive to my life. Are you enhancing, advancing, and romancing my life? And if you're not, I'm good by myself. So if you can't even be by yourself and you don't like yourself and you can't build the garden metaphorically, then you will keep chasing butterflies. And that will, like anything in life, anything you chase is going to elude you. And that is when people get frustrated of being like, I'm tired and I'm burnt out from dating. And I'm like, why don't you date yourself for a little bit?
I love the way you just put that. That's so helpful to bring your life up to the max that you can, where you're like, I am enforcing it. Forcing that resilience because it's so much easier to go like once I have a husband then I'll have kids and I'll be so happy and once I have a husband then we'll do this and this and this. It's like,
that's one of the biggest differences too with the person that I'm dating now. I feel like a lot of the other people that I've dated, I to your point, I had to kind of dim my light, or I felt like I was kind of like living like a version A, version B of my life. And like, I was like, okay, in podcast Brianna mode. And then like, I couldn't really be who I was. And I think the right person comes in and it's an interdependence that fits in seamlessly. And it's just like a very easy integration.
It's such a nuanced lesson that I had to learn tangibly what you just spoke on is when you talked about how driven you are and you're on these podcasts and you're killing it. And then there's just this slight dim to accommodate for certain personality types. And it's the right person will fan your flame, not extinguish it.
And not, I mean, there was a guy I remember I dated, like I had to like ask him to be like, can you listen to this thing, this piece of work that I've done? And like, that's the thing too. It's really actually this idea of, and I've talked to my partner about this. It's not if he wanted to, he would. It's that honestly, it's just not a priority for the person on
Yeah.
both sides of the coin. And so like, again, if you find yourself begging or pleading or trying to like show your worth to somebody and they're not getting it, they either aren't capable of giving that to you, or no offense, you're just not a priority to them. And that's a hard pill to swallow, but like it is easy. It's people are only stupid when it's convenient to fit their narrative.
Right. Can you touch on what you would say to this? It will not be confusing. And if it is confusing, it's not a good match. What do you
That's
say about that?
that's like when people ask for a sign and I'm like, if you're asking for a sign, that is your sign. Okay? Like that you're not confused. Actually, there's a comedian called Jared Freed and I got this his philosophy from him and he said every time that you want to say you're confused, say I'm turned off because you're not confused.
Yeah.
It's actually extremely unattractive behavior.
It is horrifically unsettling to sit in confusion as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And try
Confusion is an answer. Ambiguity is an answer. Not, you can't think that the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with is somebody that you've been so unsure about for so long, being so confused.
absolutely. And even in the initial states of dating, 3 months in, you're like, I'm not
Correct.
really sure what's happening here.
You are sure, but you're not sure that you're ready to deal with the fallout and the consequence of it. It's the same reason people don't have tough conversations because they know if I have this tough conversation on the other side of it, I will now have a truth bomb that it is now incumbent upon me to say, what do I want to do with that? And if I don't do anything with it and I just ignore it, then I'm stupid and I'm lying to myself. So
Yes.
people are not ready to accept that and say, oh, you actually showed me who you are and what you're capable of. I'm not confused. I've just invested too much time and energy, sunk cost fallacy, and I don't want to start over.
So much rhetoric of people trying to make sense of ramming a square peg in a circular hole. They
Yes.
are doing mental gymnastics to
Mm-hmm.
just please tell me this is why do you think that is?
That difficult that early on, good luck because it's hard enough to make a good relationship work.
Oh yeah.
So you're only a couple of months in, again, I'm not talking you're like 10 years into a marriage, you got a couple of kids and a mortgage, and you're going through a rough patch. That's a very different conversation,
Correct.
right? But these people who are like, you're 3, 6 months in and you're crying and you're so confused and quote confused and all this stuff. No, you're probably just really lonely and you're tired of dating and you are wanting to be in a relationship because who doesn't like being in love? Being in love is the best feeling.
Correct.
When you're loved properly, it's the most expansive, supportive feeling. But what
Wow.
people forget is that when you are loved improperly, it will bring out a side of you that you will not notice yourself and you will not even like yourself. And it will have such a negative ripple effect on everything else in your life. So
Yeah.
you need to have either a supportive partner or no partner at all.
Yes. I mean, when you are loving incompatibly, you will find yourself going like, "Oh, I'm such an anxious person." I'm not.
Correct.
I'm actually not.
Correct.
This
Yes.
this situation is making me incredibly anxious because
Correct.
it's not aligned with my values. Which
Honestly, it's not rocket science. If you are like calling your mom crying 5 times a week, if you had to give advice to your best friend that at the most, if people remembered nothing from this episode, any question that you are asking, if your best friend asked you for the advice that you are pitching to everybody else, what would you say in that moment? That's it.
oh
That's
my
it.
God. Oh my God, it's huge to put it on someone you deeply care about, a friend. Let me ask you this question. Why do you think the divorce rates are so high?
I think people pick poorly.
I do too.
I think it's a problem from the beginning. You have to go back to inception.
I do too. I think a lot of people focus on what happens 20 years in. It's like, no, I think we picked incorrectly.
You got to be a better buyer and you have to have better criteria from jump. If you
Yeah.
don't even know what your criteria is, right? Like, then you are going to probably pick somebody who's not aligned for you. Or again, am I picking from a place of, oh, my light's just on. I'm just ready to get married and this is the person that's in my life? I'm tired. I'm settling, right? Everybody else, there's fake societal pressure about shit. I'm on this arbitrary timeline. Great. Then see what that costs you when you settle and do that because you're living somebody else's life.
Huge. See what it
Mhm.
costs you to be
See
in
what
a
it costs you.
rush in your 20s
You
and
will
even
pay
30s.
a very high interest rate on that in perpetuity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, Brianna, you're a literal legend, an icon, a genius. I'm
No,
so
you
grateful for
are.
your insight. Again, it was a huge learning curve for me because breakups make no sense to me at all.
Yeah.
And now I have some skills thanks to you and some resilience.
I actually, when people go through a breakup, I always say, congratulations, your life is about to get so much better. It is literally, there are only certain doors that can be opened in your life via heartbreak. So
Yeah.
I think if you use the time properly and alchemize and transmute the pain, you will be living a much more aligned life and you will be catapulted. Controlled demolition. Use that pain and the shit to build a bridge to your next life, to another level of your life that now the person who meets you next is actually meeting the version of you that is so much more authentic.
Yeah.
And you get to now again build that garden while people are coming into your life and you get to say, you can't work here.
Yeah.
Rihanna, thank you so
Lucy.
much.
I
And
love this so much.
oh my gosh, and people can find you on the links we provide below.
Yes.
And
Yes.
are you still offering coaching and
Yep. I'm still working with people one on one. I'm actually, I have a group program going right now. I'm probably going to launch another group program in the maybe before the holidays. But so, yeah, sign up for my newsletter. You can go to briannadiorio.com. So you can get information there. Listen to the Brianna Approved podcast. I'm always dropping knowledge there as well. And I'm so excited to just see where this podcast goes because when you told me about Field Trip Energy like months ago or last year, I was like, no, that's going to blow up. It's just such a huge, I can't wait for the merch specifically.
thank you. I'll send you some merch for sure right when it drops. You'll get it.
Yes. Thanks,
Thank you,
girl.
Brianna. You're the best.
Welcome.